Worst podcast I've ever been on.
I almost felt bad for Steiny.
Everyone keeps coming at me.
Schulz was going in on Steiny.
There are moments where none of us talked.
On November 10th of 2023, Andrew Schulz went on the Full Send podcast and absolutely destroyed Steiny from NELK.
I don't think anybody has gone further in entertainment with less talent than this kid.
He was embarrassed so badly that they decided to bury that episode. It was never meant to be released to the public.
Going, this is the worst podcast ever.
Why did Andrew talk trash about NELK? And did Steiny deserve the verbal beatdown?
I do feel a little bad for Steiny because he did get roasted pretty hard by Schulz.
This situation actually started by accident on a different podcast. The president of Happy Dad and NELK business partner, John Shahidi, went on a finance podcast called The Iced Coffee Hour.
You guys ever shoot podcasts and not post them?
Yeah, it's a sore subject.
John slipped up and revealed they had an episode that went off the rails and was so bad that it had to be scrapped because Steiny got roasted so hard they couldn't upload it.
Every comment was like, "F that kid."
John unknowingly started a wildfire online, rallying the fans of both NELK and Andrew Schulz to come together for a common cause, to spam the comment section requesting the episode to be released. Before we get into what happened to Steiny, we gotta dive into how he managed to sneak his way into the NELK roster. Born in Denver, Colorado.
My family, I lived comfortably, but I didn't have everything, and I never wanted to be looked at as some kid that lived off their parents.
His upbringing was easier than others as he came from a very well-off family. His father was a big-time criminal defense attorney. Steiny had plans to follow his father's footsteps and become a lawyer himself.
After high school, I went to CU for undergrad history, same path that he was on.
So you were going to be a lawyer?
Yeah.
But things didn't work out as planned, as he partied a bit too hard when he was in university and didn't make it to law school.
Smoking weed a lot, and then started, partying. Had a great time at your school. You rejected me from law school, f*** you.
So like all people with dreams of fame and stardom, he moved out to LA.
Yo, I just got a text from my friend that says his buddy Bob Menery is looking for an assistant. I was like, who the f*** is that? And he's like, he's actually got a really hot podcast right now. You should go check it out.
And that's where he met the podcaster, Bob Menery. He's important to this story and we'll come back to him in a moment.
No, I worked for Bob for a year, but my dynamic with Bob was, attached at the hip. Anywhere that Bob went, I went. But when we went to Abu Dhabi for UFC, together with the NELK boys, with Kyle and Steve.
On a business trip to Abu Dhabi for a UFC event, Bob wasn't feeling well and needed to fly back to America.
So we're in Abu Dhabi. Bob tells me he's got a dip. He goes, you have two options. He says, yo, you can stay or you can come with me. And I just kind of looked at all the circumstances. I was like, dude, I'm at a fucking UFC event in a foreign country and the NELK boys are here.
Steiny saw this as an opportunity to network with the NELK boys. It was on this trip that he connected with Steve. And Steiny took this as his chance to leave Bob.
And so I kept asking Steve, I was like, yo, Steve, I'll fucking quit right now and work for you. Bob called me and went crazy. He's like, you don't fucking betray the fucking Godfather, you piece of shit. I fucking created you.
So he moved on, and after a year working as Steve's assistant, he climbed his way up and got onto the NELK roster.
Steiny is, you give him an opportunity, he's gonna fucking take it.
So we need to mention the unfortunate event that happened before the Andrew Schulz podcast episode. Originally, the Full Send podcast was supposed to be hosted by Kyle and Bob. October 2023, a month before the Andrew Schulz episode, NELK and Menery had a falling out, with disputes over Bob's contract and the money owed.
Give me my fucking money and go about your way. And that's it. And I am so motherfucking disappointed.
Bob took to social media and called out NELK for their business practices. So after a heated debate, Bob ended up leaving Full Send.
So first things first, Bob is saying on social media that we owe him money. That is a complete lie. We don't owe Bob Menery a cent.
And now there was an opening for the main co-host spot. This was an opportunity of a lifetime for Steiny. He started as Bob Menery's assistant, and now Steiny had taken his former boss's job as the co-host of the Full Send podcast.
The opportunity of a lifetime, he gave it to me.
July 18th, 2023, on the Flagrant podcast, Andrew Schulz calls out NELK to release the episode that they recorded together that was buried for 10 months.
NELK! Release the pod.
Originally, Andrew didn't want it to be released because he thought it was a bad episode.
Because it sucked.
And also, Steiny didn't want it either because he got absolutely humiliated.
You didn't want it out either at all.
Okay, well, let's...
That's for sure. The reason I
Okay,
didn't...
that's also not
did not want
exactly
it out.
true because I remember saying yo, bro.
No, you didn't, bro. No.
Well, the news of an unreleased episode went viral. The fans flooded the comment section. And after weeks of pressure, they had no choice but to give the people what they want.
Everyone keeps fucking coming at me.
July 20th, 2023, Kyle releases the episode on Twitter.
Finally time, we are releasing the most anticipated episode, maybe ever.
The setup for the podcast is 3 guys from NELK, Steiny, Kyle, Steve, and Andrew Schulz as the guest. The episode starts off great. Kyle is leading the conversation, and he's plugging Schulz's comedy special. Steve and Andrew get along really well.
The infamous special was fantastic.
Oh, thank you,
It was
brother.
so good. I made sure to share it because
You
how
did
good
share
it was. It was incredible.
Thank you.
13 minutes in is where the tone of the questions start getting weird. Steiny begins to comment about Andrew's personal life, things that are a bit insensitive and out of pocket.
I want to have kids badly. My wife and I are trying to have kids. So yeah.
What's holding that up?
One of the viewers calls it out. Steiny straight up asked him, what's the hold up having kids? The one thing you don't ask people when people say they're trying but haven't been successful yet. That's when the tables turned.
It felt like trolling. And I was like, who is this fucking chicken McNugget asking me shit?
At 44 minutes and 20 seconds, things rapidly accelerate downhill. Steiny started texting and interrupted the flow of the conversation.
I think we lost him.
No, my fault. I don't even know where I was gonna go. Where are we at?
I have no idea.
I love Steiny saying, I was checking my notes. Then later, when it goes off the rails, he admits it was a text. This is the moment Andrew's energy changed. It wasn't just because Steiny was on the phone. You can see on his face that he realized he's the one driving the conversation. So after completely ruining the flow and derailing the conversation, Steiny knows he needs to step it up, recover from his mistakes, and ask some really good questions.
What's the weirdest genre of porn you've watched?
What? The weirdest genre? I don't really watch porn.
No? Why is that?
Well, you just got engaged too.
I'm not like a big jerk off guy.
Honestly, I was laughing pretty hard at this. I couldn't believe that this is what he wanted to transition into. At this point, you can feel the awkwardness and tension reaching the tipping point.
There are moments where like none of us talked. Like we just sit there like this. And I'd be like, what is fucking happening right now?
So after bringing up the subject about the propensity of beating their meat, Steiny follows up with another banger that's just as brain dead.
Have you ever made a joke where you thought it was gonna go really well and it went really bad?
Yeah.
He asked a comedian if they ever told a bad joke. It's the equivalent of asking an athlete if they've ever lost a game, or asking a musician if they've ever made a bad song. This just shows his total lack of preparation. It's almost like he did no research at all.
Because the questions they're asking are like really basic questions.
Like, what's an example?
Like, have you ever like talked to someone in the crowd?
If you think about it, Steiny's been blessed with an opportunity of a lifetime to become the main co-host of the Full Send podcast. He climbed the social ladder and took over for his previous boss, Bob Menery, who was getting paid a massive 7-figure salary to co-host the show.
In the 10 months that he was on the show, he made $1.2 million.
Even if Steiny was getting paid a small fraction of that, it's still a ton of money. You'd think he'd at least take his job seriously. It's straight up disrespectful to NELK as a brand and Andrew Schulz for how embarrassing these questions are.
It was like, hey, ChatGPT, can you give a list of questions for a comedian that you've never seen before?
Andrew is a very patient man, and he waited 46 minutes into the podcast before he started giving a little pushback.
What bothers you the most right now?
Nothing.
Nothing bothers you?
You looking at your phone while we're doing this interview, and everybody's seeming disinterested.
What do you mean?
Me taking time out of my day to do this, and then feeling
Dude,
like
I've
I'm forcing you guys to do the podcast.
What if someone in the audience is on their phone when you're doing that?
Then they're gonna get the same treatment you got.
Would you call them out?
Yes.
Have you done that before?
Yes.
And how's that reaction?
Good.
Like, why would you ask Schulz if he's ever called out someone in the audience? This comment summarized it perfectly. Asking a comedian if they've been heckled is like asking a fighter if they've sparred. The strategy of posting crowd work and live audience interactions to social media was the blueprint he helped pioneer. This is hilarious. Steiny doesn't understand how stupid every single question he asks is. For the next 7 minutes, Kyle brings up decent topics to discuss with Schulz. He's trying his absolute best to save the conversation. But for some reason, Steiny decides to chirp Andrew by making a few snide remarks.
Real comedian here.
Yeah.
Real comedian, no? Are you on Twitter?
I am on Twitter.
Are you gonna pay the $8? You
No.
seem like an $8 pay guy.
Why? What makes you feel that way?
I just want to get that vibe.
At this point, Andrew has had enough. Keep in mind, this is almost 1 hour into the podcast, and he's been taking all of Steiny's jokes and jabs with grace up till this point.
No, you trying to get pussy. That's what it is. Remember when I told you the comics trying to get pussy?
Oh.
No, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm like, you have to maximize your fame in order to get the highest, value female or whatever it is. Like,
yeah, you think so?
100%.
For some reason, Steiny gets defensive. He tries to play the victim card.
I feel bad. I feel like you came at me a little bit there.
You're doing exactly what you should do. You should try to get your moments. This is a good moment for you.
Bro, you're crazy. You think I'm doing this for clicks?
I think you need attention. I think you're doing anything you can to get attention. And right now you're making this podcast about you, which is the most boring part of the conversation. We have much more interesting people to discuss whose lives are more fascinating.
No. Oh, fuck. I don't ever want to do a podcast again, straight up.
Schulz pretty much breaks down and assassinates Steiny's character by pointing out his insecurities and calling him a social climbing clout chaser. He delivers this verbal beatdown in such a smooth and eloquent way, demonstrating that Steiny isn't ready for the big leagues. This whole exchange played out as if Andrew was trying to discipline a dog, and Steiny's a little puppy that just wouldn't stop barking. And here's the kicker, Andrew only gave him a small reality check. It was Steve who delivered the harshest truth.
What did I say that triggered you to say that?
I think he's so insecure, and I think he plays his character. He's so insecure.
But I get shit on a lot for doing that.
No, you get shit on because of the character you play because you can't be yourself.
The Full Send podcast has massive potential with the community that Kyle has built over the years with NELK. They have the reach and network to get high-profile guests. There's just so much upside with this show. Hopefully, Steiny can learn from his mistakes and take this opportunity seriously. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you want to see more creator breakdowns, please subscribe.